Hello. I think what we thought we would do is talk a little bit to some slides and some video clips and audio clips, and then I guess, Martin, are you happy for audience to ask questions as well?
Whenever anyone wants to.
Yeah, exactly. Don't feel you have to wait to the end. If there's something you want to say as we're going, please do. Gregor asked me if I would be in conversation with Martin, or if the two of us would be in conversation, mostly about this project on the Scotsman Steps that opened in Edinburgh this year, middle of this year. I think you've got a leaflet about it. I think you should have seen it, but obviously we'll show some slides of the steps before Martin made them beautiful, and now after Martin has made them beautiful. But I wanted Martin just to talk a little bit about the context for that work, which happened in the context of an exhibition at the Fruitmarket Gallery, which in turn, I think, happened in the context of two conversations that we had had. The first, I think one of the best conversations I've ever had with an artist, which was over the phone, following a text that I had written for the catalogue, and you, in the nicest possible way, took it apart and said to me a thing which I've never forgotten, which I think is totally true about your work and a lot of other great work, that what you are interested in is looking at art which makes itself in front of you, in which you work as a conductor or a composer, that you set the music out and the audience performs it. And I think that was there in the sort of beginnings of the thinking around work 1059, but also the exhibition as a whole. Do you ever say something about that? About
I
that
remember
music
that.
thing? Do you remember that?
I remember that, yeah. Oh yeah, that is what I said, yeah. But I think that, but I don't think, I wasn't talking just about my work.
Mm-hmm. No.
I just think that that all work that is made by the people who look at it. So art objects, so-called art objects, or whatever they are, things that are they're just stupid things, and they're only meaningful because of people who think that or feel that they're meaningful. In other words, the work is always really made by the people who look at it.
But I suppose with your work and with other work, which this works for, it seems to have a rather physical playing out of that.
Oh yeah, but maybe I think because of thinking that the work is always made by people when they look at it, I thought maybe I should try to make work that literally makes itself in front of people. So it is like a literal illustration of that.
Which is, in a way, what sculpture is for. It is that idea of something which is in the room with you, which is making itself with you physically, rather than offering an avenue for escape or a way through something. It's making itself in front of you, with you, and making something from not very much. I think that's the other element of your work for me. That the notion of, I'm going to play something now. Here we go. I think I have to use this. I think you should have already heard this on the way in. So I'm going to flip to a little bit of this piece. I don't have to do a lot of it, but as it was performed as part of the ballet that we did, Martin, at Sud as well, which, this song, Blow and Suck, and the part of this song, it talks about making something from nothing, is absolutely where I came into your work. I think it's at the core of what you do, and this is it.
From none, take one, add one, make none, to none, add three, take two, make one, from one, take n, add s, and m, make some, from none, take some, make none.
So that, I don't know how many people saw the ballet in Sadler's Wells or again in Edinburgh, but that incredible performance of an take from one, make none, make some, is a drawing and a song and a performance and a very specific enaction of something which makes itself in front of you.
Yeah, I
or behind
suppose
you, in fact, in your case.
But that was, that's an example of something I've just been working on for years and years, and like doing wee notes, and then trying to make a song or write a text, or so that song, has been always in progress. But I just think that nothing, I can only speak from my own experience, which is the only experience I know, and that experience is constantly changing. So I don't. So everything is always just kind of in progress. Everything is everything is literally making itself in front of you, because it seems to me like life is a matter of literally, making it up as you go along. Because from moment to moment you feel different, or the same, or slightly different, and nearly the same, or whatever it is. But it's always slightly different. So you're just always making it up as you go along. So in anything like some object like that's got a fixed shape, although it seems to me that is a fixed shape, because I'm not fixed. I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. I like it, or I like it now, but do I like it, or do I really even care about it? I like it because it amplifies my voice. But,
so the conversation we then had about the kinds of works we would have in our show, which would provide this context for the staircase piece, was works which involved you adding things to things and taking things away from things.
Yeah.
Adding and taking away, going up and down steps, if you like.
Yeah.
Which is that your practice? Does that speak to your practice? Is that what you do? You add things to things?
I think a lot of time, because I don't really feel sure about what I think or feel. So, but I do want to try and do things, and I want to try and make things, which I'm not really sure why, but I feel like I do. But I don't feel sure about them. So I've often think, all right, if I can make this thing and also unmake it at the same time, then it's a perfect situation, because you can't really, because I don't feel sure. So if I can make something that isn't sure, in the sense that it makes itself and takes itself away again, then I'm happy. Then I can live with it.
In relation to itself, rather than in relation to the world.
In relation to itself. More, you can't separate it from the world.
But is it the object unmaking the art object, or unmaking the actual object? Are you trying to destabilise?
Well, for example,
things?
One of the things that I like about neon is that it's a way of saying something, because it lights up the word. With neon, you can say something and then not say it, which with written words you can't really do, because if you write text on a page, it's basically there, the words are there. But if the words flash on and off, then it's a way of using written words, but having them, it's more like speaking them. It's more like kind of live. So I think of the flashing neon, the flashing neon signs that I've made are like, that's like saying something. To me, that's saying something, and then I don't know if I want to say that, so it switches off. And then I think, I do want to say that, so it switches on again.
And both of those things you mean, don't you, wholeheartedly? There's no irony in those.
No, there isn't any irony.
No, which is what I love about them.
No, I don't understand what that is.
So
irony.
So when you're saying, I think it's quite hard for an audience to look at everything's going to be all right and not see it. It's not up there, but I'm sure we all know it, and not think of it ironically. This, I think, is a very unironic piece of work. I love this piece of work. This is a drawing about this big, down, over, up, which became the title for the Fruitmarket show, but which I guess has that equivocation. You were saying that it's hard for words to have that equivocation, but I think that clearly does.
But also this original, that's just a wee print. But I think the one before that led to that was I got asked once to do a double page spread in a magazine, and I couldn't think what to do. But in the end, I wrote, there was a text. It just said left, and that was on the right, and it said right, and that was on the left. But what I think that the reason I like that is because I think often things that seem like in my experience, things often are the kind of opposite of what you feel like they are, you know. And like the fact that people are often, you know, like the way that, for example, you might hate something which is exactly the thing that you are attracted to, you know. So often it seems like, or often I feel like I think something about something and then it exactly turns exactly the opposite way around, and you know.
Whether that's pages of a magazine or directions or objects.
But I feel like if I'm left to my own devices, you know, I kind of kid myself. Because if I'm on my own in my flat, kind of am living in my little world, you know, it's easy to, if you build your own wee world, it's easy to kind of, you're the king and the god of your own little world, you know, and I feel like I kind of kid myself. It's easy to kid yourself and think that everything's brilliant,
do you want to make work out of that perpetuates that idea that everything might be brilliant, or do you need to make work in order to undermine or to acknowledge that everything quite often isn't?
Well, I think there's a tendency to. Well, I always feel like there's always a tendency to, you know, look for comfort in any given situation. You know, and anything that isn't comfortable, that's kind of stressful, is a cause of anxiety. So, I feel like I'm always going to look for the easy route. You know, so if I'm at home, I'll sit on the sofa, you know, rather than standing up. You know, but you know, but whereas if I go out in the street,
I'm going to give some prickly,
you know, there might not
cactuses
be
to look at.
any sofas on the street. But the point about that is that I'm trying to make, I think, is that leads to kind of like sitting on the sofa, you know, leads to sort of getting fat, and I'm not really against getting fat. I don't see what's wrong with that, but if I think about it, really, but except I don't want to get fat.
But a lot of your work is actually made from the uncomfortable position, isn't it? A lot of your work destabilises stuff. You don't sit on the sofa an awful lot of the time. An awful lot of the time you are standing up.
Yeah.
Or walking, or falling over, or standing on one leg. Your work does a lot of destabilising things.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe it does, but that comes from this fear that I think, like, I want to sit on the sofa, you know, and basically sitting on the sofa is boring, you know. I just kind of get bored, you know, and I eat chocolates, you know, and so it's kind of like a struggle against that, because if I just jump off a cliff into the sea and just start swimming, you know, that's a lot more exciting, but it's a lot more hard work, you know. So I think that it's a struggle with myself to try to not, you know, stay in bed or sit on the sofa type thing.
What then about rules? What is it about putting things in order and using one of everything? And certainly, I'm going to show a few installation shots from the show we did, and it was a show we very deliberately concentrated on things which were put in order, which went up and down steps, and which made the process of setting rules and regulations for yourself and for the work very obvious, whilst at the same time doing it with the things you did it with kind of destabilise that. You know, what is it to put a group of cactuses in a line?
To me, that just comes from not feeling sure about which. So there, you know, I did these drawings with coloured pens, and I didn't know which colours were the best ones. So I think that is each colour there is one colour out of a packet. So that's the whole packet of pens with one drawing made from each one. you know, and so, and then in the case of the cactuses, that's like one family of plants with kind of one of each type that I could get hold of. So it's not. So it just is. I think. Well, I don't know which are the best ones. So why don't I display all of them? You know?
And then in terms of the work making itself in front of the audience, do you want the audience then to have that experience of not knowing of trying to decide which is the best colour? Is that what they're doing? Or are they looking at a packet of pens? Or is it...
I don't know what they're doing. No, I don't. I've got no idea what people are doing. Or why they would want to look at that. Because I don't, you know, I don't know. And the more I look at it, I think, oh God. You know,
I should say people really do want to look at it. It was the most successful show, audience figures-wise, that the Fruitmarket has ever had. People
Really?
did, people did want to look at it. But people also did want to engage with it relative to them. You know, people line up with the cactuses. People measure themselves against it, which is interesting to me.
But I think in the end, you know, it's a mysterious thing that because I just have this, like I went through a little process there, and I thought I like these cactuses. I think they're funny, you know, like big willies, and I thought I like that. It'd be good to get loads of them, all different ones, and you know. And I don't know which are the best ones, so I'll try and get the full range. But then but that's just my wee process of making the work. Then it's quite another thing whether the work sort of works or not, and that's really up to. Like I have my feelings about that, but it's got a lot to do with other people maybe liking it as well. You know, so if someone else likes it, or maybe friends, or if it's a show, I get a feeling that loads of people say they like it or something like that. That's how. Then I think then it looks as if it's working.
So is it finding out about? Do you make a work like that to find out about the object, to find out about the cactuses, or find out about things that can be done with them?
No, I don't think it's a matter of finding out anything. No, I think it's just a matter of looking for, you know, excitement and something that, you know, that makes my life better. So fun or excitement or you know, what you might call beauty even, you know, or something like that.
I suppose that is one of the most surprising things about these works, is how beautiful they are. On this slide, this is a work with a stack of tables with a dog behind them. Those are two different works. Orson and Sparky is the film of a big dog and a small dog behind this stack of tables, which I guess is you know, if we go back to the notion of going up and down steps and adding things to things, but destabilising things as well.
Yeah.
But there is one.
But sorry.
No.
But I feel like. But also, I think now I'm talking about we're talking about these works that are you know, these ones that, you know, that were made some time ago, and so, you know, in retrospect, it always looks, you know, I don't like, most of the time I don't think I know what I'm doing, you know, when I'm working at, you know. So if you talk about a work in retrospect, it might actually sound like you knew what you were doing. You know, I don't think I knew necessarily what I was doing. What you're doing, or why you're doing it? Well, both. Because they have an incredible surety to them, an incredible obviousness in the right way, that what you've done with those tables is the right thing to do with those tables. Really? Which I find a bit strange anyway. But what I do think when I look at those, I think these, like these works that have a lot of repeated bits in them, I think that I like them because it's a repeated pattern. So and I find that kind of comforting. Is that because repetition
closes options down for you or opens options up? Is it seeing the difference?
No, it's because it opens it up to me, because basically, because I think the world is ever changing and crazy and impossible to pin down. So if you put next to the world a kind of fixed grid, then it might be a way to sort of enjoy the craziness in the world rather than just be really scared of it. So it's like a picture window on a scene, or a fence.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a fence is a better, because it's a fence which you can look through into the jungle, but which protects you from the tigers.
I was about to ask you about the modernist grid, but now we're into tigers. That's something they don't fit into that quite so well. But clearly, the word grid is historically and artistically a very charged term. And you do make grids. Look.
But I don't. But I try not to take notice of art history.
I mean, obviously there are people who would think that the stack of plywood is not taking notice of art history anyway. But that piece has an extraordinary discipline to it. It's a lot of sheets of plywood laid on top of each other, relating to that piece. I guess repetition and difference is all there, really. The notion of needing to repeat a piece of plywood over and over again. Because you can? Because you want to?
The plywood stack, that sculpture was a sculpture made thinking I'd like to try. I was thinking, which is in a lot of the works, I think I'd like it if everything's visible.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and make everything visible a lot of the time, so there's no hidden background stuff. So in the paintings I've been doing lately, there's no there's no underpainting or anything like that. Usually the colours are like put next to each other like that. And that's because I think I want to see everything exactly. So there's no hidden bits. So one of the ideas of that plywood stack is that that's a shape that you can see how it's made. The way it's because it's a laminated pile.
Yeah, which you can see the laminates.
So it's just a really simple shape that you can see how it's built.
Yeah.
And that was one of the little. Usually, in most of these works, there's like a tiny wee experiment, like that I've got in mind, and that's how it comes about.
I mean, I think that is very interesting that you say that. I think the experience of showing your work to people, part of its generosity is that it doesn't need any explanation. Or quite often when you're going around a show with people, you find there's things that you need to tell them, or you can tell them about how the works are made, little, not exact secrets, but this is done like this, or the art. And with your work, there's none of that. Audience can do that themselves. There's no need to say, see, there's a stack of plywood there.
Right.
And look how the stripes work. And I think an audience does have confidence then, because they know that they can see what's been made and why it's been made, actually, which is part of its generosity. I think it works right there, maybe.
But I try and do everything sort of plainly and simply, because I find it difficult to understand things. So I try and keep it simple, and I hate feeling like I'm being fake, So I feel like if I can keep it simple, and if I can make everything, because I don't think you really can't know what you're doing, because now I'm talking, I don't know what I look like to you, and I don't know what my body language tells you, but you probably think whatever you think. Oh, that guy is obviously whatever. You can't know what you're doing, and it's the same when you make a work. You can't really know what you're doing. So as I talk now, I'm just concentrating on my words more or less. But maybe my movements give more away, you know. Or maybe my jacket gives more away, or whatever, you know. And it's exactly the same when you work. You're doing your thing, but you know, the thing that you make, you know, you've fucking no idea what it is. I don't think, you know. So given that, I think, given that I don't know what I'm doing, even though I try to know what I'm doing because I want to know what I'm doing, because I know I'm scared of being out of control and kind of like. So I try and control what I'm doing, but given that I think I can't know what I'm doing, I try to make as much of what I do visible, so that then maybe later, you know, after the dust is settled, I can look at that work and I can kind of see, I can literally see everything if nothing's hidden. And maybe then I can like think, oh, that's you know, good to look at or something.
Yeah.
Do you
No,
know?
I do.
But,
Completely.
and that's it.
Just flick on a little bit. Stacks of chairs, and then we're aware that we should perhaps talk about the Scotsman Steps a little bit before it ends. Also in the exhibition were 2 sound works, both of which had a big impact on the work you made on the Scotsman Steps. The first which is a choir of 8 people singing their way up the scale in the Fruitmarket Gallery lift, which is a lift which takes 8 people. So as you go up and down in the lift, the choir goes up and down the scale, which is a piece you had made for Icon first, or I saw it in Hauser and Wirth first. I saw it. And when we first of all had conversations about the Scotsman Steps, that was the reason that I hoped you might consider making a work on the Scotsman Steps, because you had made a work which went up and down the scale. And following that piece, the first idea you had for the Scotsman Steps outside, we ended up making in the gallery. I've got a little clip of that. Here we go. Which is a staircase piece.
Oh, yeah.
People had a lot of fun, you can imagine, going up and down. There is on YouTube. Have you seen the clip on YouTube of the boy band in
America?
America?
Yeah, I've
playing?
seen that.
You should look it up if you haven't seen it. It's so funny. But so that was the first idea for this staircase. This is the Scotsman Steps as we've all known them for a long time, and as we first started talking about what kind of work you might make. And yeah, so first idea is to make them make a noise.
Aye, that was the first idea. And then have it so that the musical stairs that you saw there were it's the whole musical scale is spread over the stairs, so there's one note for each step. And but that wasn't really practical in these kind of outdoor steps, because in the end, with all the technology, it would have been too difficult.
Yeah.
I think that was the reason, wasn't
Well,
it?
weren't we talking? I think at one point we were talking about whether we'd need to embed sensors in the steps to make it do that,
Yeah.
and then therefore we'd have to resurface the steps.
Exactly. Plus, looking after all the electrics and all that was difficult.
Which I'm quite pleased we're not doing.
Aye.
But then you had been working with marble. You had been making.
I had been
works.
trying out these things with marble, and so in a way, the marble idea for the steps was to make every step a different type of marble, and in a way, it's very similar to the cactus piece that you saw a photo of, because like marble is like one big family, and within that, like I've tried to find as many different kinds possibly could, so that it's like the whole world contained in one microcosm, and that's it.
That is it. So there are 104 steps. There's 104 different colours of marble.
And yeah.
What is your experience of working in the public realm, making
Well,
artworks outside of galleries?
I find that the most. I find it really. I find it probably more scary to do things in public than in private, because in public people are walking by, they might see a work, they're kind of like basically innocent victims of the work, whereas someone that goes to an art gallery is choosing to go and see something, so they're basically asking for it, so. So I'm always really aware of that when I do things in public, I think.
And does that
Or maybe I'd like to just do that all the time and not distinguish between public and private spaces. But I think that public spaces public areas are, to me, are good exactly because there's people who are not sort of specialists in sort of art specialists or something like that.
Well, it has a completely different context, doesn't it? I mean, we talked about the context for this work, but actually now the work exists in Edinburgh with no context of yours, actually, just the context.
Exactly, aye.
And there's, I think they mean it in a complimentary way, but quite a few people come into the gallery having walked down the steps to find out more about it, and they go, "Oh, we didn't realise it was art."
Oh yeah.
And they find that, I think they mean that in a good way.
Oh yeah.
They enjoyed it so much they didn't realise it was
Oh yeah,
art.
that makes me happy, aye. Because I wouldn't want to say what I do is art anyway, so. I don't like the art world.
I don't think anyone likes the art world, but the art world likes you.
Right.
The art world thinks what you do is art.
Alright, well, that's
Gives
very
it
nice
that.
of it.
So the next public project, we should talk about that. We should ask for questions as well. But do you want to talk about the bells project? I think we will have a bells event on the Scotsman Steps. I think we should get everybody to come and ring bells on the steps.
Well, I find writing music just as difficult as trying to make, paintings or sculpture or whatever. And so, like the stairs thing there with the musical steps, that's an example of my little experiment in trying to make a composition. Or in other words, I don't know which notes are the best ones, so I think if there's one note for each step, then whatever people stand on, they're the notes that get played. Or in the case of the lift, it uses the whole scale from top to bottom. And thereby making me feel better because I'm not choosing which note gets.
So it starts at the lowest a human voice can go?
It starts at the kind of bottom of the bass and it finishes at the top of soprano, more or less. It depends on the person, but it depends on the singer, but more or less from the bottom of bass to top of soprano. And so that's that's an example of a really it's kind of a stupid piece of music, but it's that's a piece of music trying to make all the notes equal, and then the bell, and that's how the bells thing started, which is this piece of music that we're going to try to play all over Britain on the opening day of the Olympics. But that started just thinking of trying to write a piece of music, but a public, a public piece of music, and bells are basically noise-making instruments are designed for public, for making noise in public. And then I just had the simple idea of trying to ring all the bells in a given place, for a certain amount of time, because whenever I've heard loads of bells ringing all at once, I always thought it was a brilliant sound,
So is this literally people will be making the artwork happens when people are ringing the bells?
There's going to be a specific time of day that's planned to happen, and hopefully all over Britain.
Will you try and capture any of that? Will you try and get any of that recorded? Is it just one of those ephemeral things which...
I will try and record some of it, yeah.
It's
It's a weird work because it's,
yeah.
no one would ever know whether it's happened or not.
Yes, which is obviously very much part of its appeal. That you won't be able to record all of it. If somebody's on Stornoway ringing a bell, then, which I imagine there will be, then you're not going to know whether they are or not, I guess. And do you like that? Do you like the fact that the work has its own kind of inbuilt anarchy to it?
I don't know. I don't know if I like it. I just think that it's. I think that I like the sound of lots of bells ringing.
Because they're not just ideas, are they, your works? They do have to...
And I think it's got to be all the bells. It can't just be 3 of them. Because it's obvious that you can't say that bell is better than that bell.
So it's again based on this desire not to choose, not to...
Aye. I think so, aye.
To have both things, to have down and up, to have left and right.
Yeah. Making decisions just drives me crazy, So I just think, well, if I just take all of them, then I feel all right,
I think it's a great reason to make a work. I think we're supposed to stop at 2, so are there any questions for Martin on any of this or on the Olympic project?
That was a good question.
Exactly. There's definitely a question over there.
I can't speak that language.
Martin, I'd just like to ask that you produced a book recently, and on the spine it said, "I fear this book."
Oh yeah.
And can you just talk a bit more about why you feared it? And you often use the word scary. Things are scaring you in some way.
Aye.
But why did you fear your book?
Well, because that book's a compilation of more or less all the things I've done or tried to make over the years, and I was scared of compiling it and then seeing what I'd done. I was basically scared that I would just think it was shit, and I did think that, about a lot of it. So I was really scared because, oh God, it's all right. So this is what I've been. That was my feeling about that book. I just thought, oh God, that is what I've been fucking doing, all this time. That shite that isn't good enough,
It's one of those moments, isn't it? Again, that ought to be ironic. You ought not to mean it.
Right. No, I do mean it.
I know you do.
I don't. The more I see this stuff, I just think I've got to try harder.
That's a good reason for keeping going. Are there any more questions for Martin? I think a microphone is running towards you.
Hello, is that working?
Can hear you anyway.
Can I hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. I was just wondering if you were saying that you gain pleasure and the beauty and stuff doing it all. If you had the choice to never have to work, would you ever? Do you think you would ever kind of do it still? If you didn't have to work, if you didn't have to have.
You mean you didn't have to work because of having enough money to?
Yeah, have a. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
No, I would. Working is the only thing that seems to really help.
Yeah.
To fight against the bad feelings that I have. Basically, I feel, so although sometimes sitting on the sofa helps, that does help, but that usually helps kind of a bit after work kind of thing. But it more or less goes like I wake up and I feel bad, and then and working, especially I think often if you really force yourself to let's say sometimes I feel I really force myself to go out because I think because to maybe to meet someone who I like, but I just can't be fucking bothered, but then I kind of force myself because I think, oh yeah, but I like that guy. I really do like him or her. But and then I'm often really glad that I went.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of fight, you know.
Yeah.
I think. So I think the working really does help. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another question down here.
Do you find it hard to make decisions in everything, or is it only for your artwork? I guess it's
No,
in
it's
everything
everything.
you do.
Yeah,
Like when you're
yeah.
dressing up or you're choosing your meal in the menu, you
Yeah.
always have to.
Yeah. No, it's everything. I wouldn't distinguish between. I wouldn't because I think you can distinguish anyway between, you know, the decisions and the sort of I don't think you can distinguish between, you know, drinking the water and painting the painting. Let's say because you might need the water to paint to be able to have the energy to, you know. So and I find all those kind of decisions difficult. But
Oh, there's.
Sorry, can you just talk into the mic?
But then I do worry that I'm kind of just addicted to not being able to decide as well, and it's just become a thing that I do now.
Like a strategy.
Aye, I worry about that.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to be like that.
Because you've been talking about things getting destabilised. Is it a bit strange seeing that the steps that you've done in Edinburgh is quite a monumental piece? Is that it's almost like the opposite to the
Aye.
notion of
Yeah.
something being quite light-footed or destabilising or
Yeah.
easily dismantled again?
Exactly. Yeah, that does worry me a lot. The permanence of the marble floor scared the hell out of me. And it made me realise that, you know, exhibitions are on for 4 or 6 weeks, or even a work displayed, you know, in a museum that might be in the permanent collection of a museum or something like that, but it would only be on display for a certain amount of time before it's changed, you know. And so the permanence of that made me think a lot, you know, about the difference between a kind of more or less a live event and something that's kind of just there all the time. But,
Fiona, would you mind commenting on that too, from your perspective? Because it is so different from a lot of what Martin has done.
It is very different, but it's also very the same, I think, because it does change. It's an incredibly dynamic thing. It changes all the time. It's a very mutable experience going up there, and it made people. One of the things I like about it, it's encouraged people to change their behaviour. I now walk a different route to work so that I can walk down the steps every morning. So I see them every morning, and see people interacting with them as artworks, as their route to work, as the nicest route between the old town and the new town. What used to be the nastiest route between the old town and the new town, these rather disgusting steps. And people also, they are art. They're art in the public realm. They exist in the public realm. The Scotsman Steps has for a long time been a very safe haven for people who want to use it as a toilet and want to use it as a place to inject drugs. And that still happens on the Scotsman Steps to a much lesser degree, because it's also populated by people who want to use it as steps or look at it as an artwork. But it is part of the landscape of Edinburgh, which is a very different experience for me as a curator, having an artwork out there on its own, holding its own on its own terms. But I remember something that you said to me, Martin, in the studio a long time ago, that once a work was made, you were very happy for it to go out and do its thing on its own. That you felt that it didn't need, that a good work of art shouldn't need any special pleading, shouldn't need to be looked after. And the Scotsman Steps get better and better. The more people throw chewing gum on them, the more they become part of people's everyday lives. And we take the chewing gum off, obviously. But I do like it that they hold their own, they protect themselves, they exert their own dynamism. So I think they do change quite a lot. So it's a very long answer, but I think they do have a dynamism to them on their own terms. So come and see them. Those of you who haven't, come and walk up and down them. Come on the 27th of July. You don't need to be in London for the Olympics. Come to Edinburgh and ring your bells on the Scotsman Steps. I guess we should probably wrap up there. Thank you very much, Martin. It was a
Oh, yeah.
joy to hear you talking about your work. Thank you for that.